Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to go over the very basics of pinstriping. Where do you start? What supplies you need to buy? How to take care of the supplies? And just show you all the options of things you can buy, because you don't need to buy everything to start, but you do need some basic things to get moving and start learning the art form. So of course first you need brushes. Brushes come in many shapes, many sizes. I use this little tackle box, lure box thing for my brush box. They will either come like this, where they are wrapped with a little protective covering on them. Come stiff like this, with basically like some glue on there, like some sizing almost. Or they'll come like these, where they are loose. And there is synthetic hair brushes, like these, and there is animal hair brushes. These are generally squirrel hair. These are just the basic green wraps from MAC. In my experience, if they are a dagger or a sword style brush, they're generally squirrel hair, and they will come without any kind of glue on them when you order them. They'll just be natural, ready to go. So this, you could literally just put some thinner on it, put some paint, and start using it. Now, when it comes to something like this, where it has that glue on it, these are the only 3 brushes I have right now that I haven't already used. That's why I'm using these for example. But when it comes to the glue on it, you have to get all of that out before you can use it and paint with it. And that requires the use of mineral spirits to get all that out, and you just want to get it out real good. You'll know because it'll feel soft. You'll know when it's all out of there. So, brush types. Types of brushes. You will have a traditional pinstriping brush. It will be either called a sword or a dagger depending on length and shape, but it's pretty easy to figure out because it kind of looks like a blade, right? Can you see that there? So it kind of looks like a blade. And then you have scrolling brushes. Scrolling brushes are like this Alpha 6 brush right here. It comes to a complete point. You see the difference there? Comes to a complete point, and basically you, for the most part, ride on that point when you're doing a scrolling design. Now, those are the 2 main ones you'll use. There are, let's see if I can find them here, a little buried in the box. There are quills like this. It's more for like a chisel brush like this. This is more for doing lettering. So if you're going to do any kind of lettering, you're going to run into these, and you're also going to run into ones like this, which I think that's a quill. This is a chisel brush. I get the names mixed up, but you'll get this. These are all, I use both of these for lettering. This is a quill, and this is a more chisel type design. So you'll have that, and then you also have liners, which are very similar to scroll brushes, but they are basically, scroll brushes will kind of fatten out and then get skinny to a point, where a liner brush is basically skinny and straight the whole way. Let me see if I can find a liner in here without getting too much oil all over my hands. And I can't. They're in there. So that is all the different types of brushes. There are some other ones, but generally this is what you're going to run into. Now, if you're going to do something like this, was done with a like a sword or dagger style, and I will see if I can reach an example of scrolling design somewhere. Oh, I think that's actually back here. Yeah, so this is more of a scrolling design done with one of those brushes that come to a point. So those are basically the 2 different types of brushes. Let's get into brush care, which is very important. Very, very, very important. Okay, so for brush care, you're going to need some mineral spirits, some kind of oil, and like a paper towel to clean them out and get them ready for storage, or to break them out and get ready to paint. Either way. I like to use these blue shop towels. You can get them anywhere, Walmart, any auto parts store, most places. I always like to use these because regular paper towels are just too thin. This I can fold over a couple times, as you see. I fold it twice. And that gives me a little cushion to get less of the mineral spirits on my hands. So that's the way I like to do it. So get you a paper towel, get the brush. This brush is obviously not new right out of the box. This brush has been used many times actually, but I'll show you the procedure basically from taking a brush out of storage and then cleaning it, getting it ready for paint, and then cleaning it after paint to put it back into storage, which is basically that's the arc of a brush's life. The brush is either going to be covered in oil or in thinner or in paint or some other or in sizing, but well, that's a different day's subject. So you take the brush out and it's going to have a good, thick layer of oil through all the hairs. So you want to pinch it, and not a lot of pressure, just enough to basically complete the motion. Don't squeeze hard, but just kind of smush a lot of the excess oil out of the brush. Just real nice, not a lot of squeezing. You're just running it through, right? And then I like to keep 2 different containers of thinner. I like to keep a dirty jar and a clean jar. The dirty jar, if I'm doing a job and there's dirty thinner from the job and it's enough that it's worth keeping, I throw it back in here and it kind of builds up. And then this also has obviously a bunch of the oil in it because we're about to clean the oil out of the brush with the dirty thinner. So, and it's not as dirty in there as it looks on the outside of the jar. I know the outside of the jar looks like a horror show. So let's see how well you can see this. Yeah, it's pretty good. So basically dip it down inside the thinner there and just kind of rotate your fingers like this. Spin them back and forth. Shake the brush around a little bit. Want to try to get the thinner up in there as much as possible. And then what I like to do, which helps, is I'll hold it like this and pinch it and let the thinner kind of run down into the ferrule a little bit. So, oh, the ferrule is the wrapping, by the way. Or in some of the brushes I showed you, it's a piece of metal, like this one. That's a metal ferrule, and that's a wrapped ferrule. So you're going to do this. I like to do it 3 times. And just shake it up in there, spin it around as fast as you can. Get the thinner into those hairs really good to help get all the oil out. And one more time. Okay. All right, so I'll do it 3 times with the dirty thinner, and then I also do it 3 times with the clean thinner. And it just helps to ensure, hopefully there's no cross-contamination between your paint and the oil you store your brush with, because you don't want that. That's bad. Shake it around. Same thing. Just do it again. No difference. All right. Number 2. And you can rub the brush here against the edge to take off some of the excess. And you got a 3rd round. Now feel free to put on gloves when you're doing this. It's probably much, much smarter to be doing so. I do wear gloves sometimes, but I generally won't wear them while I'm painting. I only wear them during this part, but I find the more often I paint, the less often I throw on the gloves during this stage. Again, you should put on the gloves. So then I'll take a little bit of the clean thinner and put it, I like to use, this is what I use for painting for like a palette board. It's basically a clipboard, and I have this clip-on double cup scenario. Sometimes I'll put, is this on the camera? Sometimes I'll put Dixie cups in these, and sometimes I don't, as you can tell. But basically, putting the magazine on the clipboard, it's nice, because once you're done with it, you can just unclip it and rip off that page, and you're onto a fresh palette. Or you can do that switching in between colors, or if you're doing a lot of colors and this gets filled up. So once, I'm not going to put paint in this right now, I'm just showing you cleaning purposes, but basically now you're at the stage where you put a little thinner in one of those cups. So as your paint dries, you might need to thin it out a little bit more. And you put the paint in the other cup. And basically that's how that goes. I will show you paletting in a different video. and how to work the paint into the brush and how to use one of these brushes. But just going over supplies today. So basically you do that, and then so let's say we painted this thing, and the brush is all cleaned out again, ready for oil. So there's many different types of there's specialty brush oil. There's I use Neat's foot oil, which is like a leather working oil. It's pretty natural, low toxicity oil. That's what I use. Some people use motor oil. I've heard of people using automatic transmission fluid, olive oil, all kinds of stuff. But I like this stuff. It's actually, honestly, if I'm going to be honest with you, when I started, I got this container, and that was 5 years ago, and I still have the same container, so that tells you how long this lasts. And I've just never really used anything but the Neat's foot oil. It is well known that it's a good oil for that purpose. Is it the best? I couldn't tell you. I've never used anything but. So you can dip your brush in the oil like you just seen me do, and then on your palette, push it down and just kind of work it back and forth so that that oil gets worked into the hairs for any areas that it might not have gotten. And you can spin it and flip it. See, so I'm pulling it back and I'm flipping it each time as I work it through. And if you have to dunk it again, feel free, dunk it as many times as you think. But I know that's covered, so let's put her back away. Okay. Now let's go over paints. Okay, so now the fun part, getting into the paint. So you have a couple different brands to choose from, and you have a couple different types to choose from. So brand wise, the oldie goldie is One Shot. Nothing wrong with it. I have no complaints except for, I don't know, I don't really have any complaints. I don't use One Shot as much as I should, though, because basically during, like, I think it was 2021, 2022, there was a problem getting One Shot. So I started experimenting with other companies, and now I use what I have left over. And but I'm not against buying One Shot again. So you have One Shot, you have Ronin, and you have Alpha Enamel. So from all three those are the major three. There's a bunch of other pinstriping brands as well, but those are the main three. So I use Ronin the most, and that's the way I've been going lately. As I progress and my career progresses, I might change it back up, but Ronin's been my go-to as of lately. So they all come. So this is like the smallest container, a 1/4 pint, 4 ounces, and then it goes up 1/2 pint, 8 ounces, and it goes up and up from there can wise, right? I normally buy the 4-ounce ones. I do have a couple colors in the bigger ones. So, and same thing with the Alpha Enamel. They do theirs in bottles instead of cans, which has its pros and cons. You know, it's easy access. Just grab it, pop the lid, squeeze it out instead of opening a can or taking a screw out of the can. So it has that, but you do tend to, in my experience, lose a lot of paint from it hardening up on the sides of the bottle. Maybe it just feels that way because you can't really get inside the bottle and like see it. I don't really know. But, you know, and each company, you know, I'll make further videos on the benefits, because each of these paints do act different from each other. One, because they're different colors. You'll learn that every color kind of acts a little different, and some companies, like greens, might be better than other companies, or et cetera, et cetera. But each brand also has their characteristics that are pros and cons, both, you know, they all do. So, and those are all what's called a enamel, and it's an oil-based enamel, and that is the go-to. That's mainly what you're going to use. Now there is also urethane striping paint, and urethane is probably better in all ways. I use enamels more than I do urethanes. mainly because of cost and odor. So urethanes, much more toxic, cost much more. They do dry much faster, which is very beneficial if you're at a show striping something up and you're worried about the person driving home with it, or just in general, just knowing like it's dry and it's good and you can touch it and all that stuff. Urethane also handles clear coat being sprayed on top of it much better, though enamel's fine too. There's just a little bit of a process there. Now you are going to have, so urethane wise, again, many companies, there's House of Color, who I don't own any of their striping paint, but obviously they're an amazing, if you know anything about paint, House of Color is an amazing paint company. But Hot Hues is kind of the king for urethane striping, I would say. And Ronin has their own urethane line, which I'm just starting to mess with. Again, I mainly use enamels. But when you're running into, so there is hardener for enamel, and there is hardener for urethane. And there is mineral spirits for enamel, and there is reducer for urethane. These don't play well together. So you have to keep, you know, if you have urethanes, you have to keep them separate. And if you have enamels, you have to keep them separate as well. And mineral spirits will not break down or get the urethane paint off your brush at all. It has to be reducer, or else it's basically not going to touch it. Now, hardener. You don't always have to use hardener. If it's a paying job, I suggest it. If it's going to be out in the elements a lot, I suggest it. If it's going under clear coat, I also suggest it, even though a lot of people won't put hardener and then still clear coat over it because the clear coat itself has hardener. That works too. I just like it as extra assurance. So that's basically the types of paint and brands and stuff like that you're going to run into. Let's go over some additives next. So I don't have much to go over as far as additives go because I don't really use them, to be honest with you. I do have this, I think it was called Smooth Stroke or something like that. It's a Kafka product. And I do occasionally use this when I'm trying out some scrolling designs because it's like a flow enhancer. And you can also use things called Pentrol, something like that, for the same purpose, and it just takes a couple drops of this, and it does help the paint flow better, and it kind of reduces the brush strokes you can see. I probably should use it more, but I've had this container since I first started, and it's not even halfway, so you can tell it's something I very rarely use. There's also like fisheye eliminators, there's flattening pastes, there's a number of different additives that you know, I wouldn't be able to speak to very well because, again, I don't use them. So, but what I have here, this is that oil. What I have here is Sprayway glass cleaner, and I have some diluted 50% 91 alcohol, 91 isopropyl alcohol, and 50% diluted water. When I'm working on a customer's vehicle, I like to wipe it down with this, then wipe it down with the alcohol, and that helps. It helps remove any kind of like dirt and contaminants and waxes and whatever's might be on the paint. Of course, you should, you know, wash the area before you do this. But sometimes you're working on one, it needs to be clean chemically, and even if it looks clean, you should still do that. And two, yeah, sometimes the car's dirty, and this just helps get the dirt off the area. You're not going to, wash the entire customer's vehicle just to stripe it for them. But yeah, that's my cleaning process for either the panel I'm working on or the vehicle's paint prior to applying any kind of paint on it. Some other things you might need as far as supplies go are masking tape. You want to have various different, I have more than this, but this is just what I have in front of me. You want various different thicknesses. Here and there, you're going to use some tape to help you, help find a center line, be the center line sometimes, or sometimes you want to mask off an area that you want to make sure none of your paint gets to. So you're going to have various thicknesses of masking tape. You're going to have a ruler, paper and pencil, different panels, obviously, for practicing on. And panels, they can be this aluminum composite here. It could be a mirror, a piece of glass, piece of wood. Let's see. My refrigerator's pinstriped. I mean, it could really be anything. The rougher the surface, obviously pulling a pinstriping design on like concrete is extremely difficult. So the smoother the surface, the better, up into a point. Now glass. A lot of people start out and practice on glass. There's nothing wrong with that except for, well, okay, then there's something wrong with that. So glass isn't like car paint. Even like super polished out car paint, it has a little bit of a pull on the brush as you're pulling that brush, you know, down the line. Glass has no pull. So if you're always practicing on glass, it's good because it's easy to, you know, use it, wipe it off at the end. If you forget to wipe it off, you can take a razor blade to it. And it's really nice for a reusable practice surface. But it's not giving you that accurate representation of what it feels to pull a brush on a car, which obviously everybody, myself included, that's the goal, is doing more customers' vehicles. So let's see, what else would you have? We can get into, I'll save it for other videos, we can get into pounce wheels and chalking designs, and then there's Stabilo pencils, there's compasses, there's maul sticks, there's a whole bunch of stuff as it evolves. This is the basics. I mean, you need a brush, you need a paint, you need a way to thin the paint, you need hardener if you need it in those scenarios, and you know, cleaning the brush, putting it back away, and you need a surface to paint on, you need a palette. So that's the very basics for you. As I go, I'm going to make videos about, I'm going to dive into each thing. Like, I think I'm going to make a beginner video on how to palette the brush till the paint has the right consistency. Beginner video on what is a pinstriping design, the basics of pinstriping when you're practicing, which is, you know, a lot of straight lines, some C curves, some S curves. I myself don't practice the basics as much as I should, but I'm fixing that in the new year. So yeah, so I'll go over all that in future videos. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.